Hi everyone to today's mastery session about integrations and API. Welcome and thanks for joining today. This is the last of our mastery sessions. In the last couple of weeks, we already have done mastery sessions about answering reviews with a deep dive into our review inbox, then an analytics deep dive in all analytics functionalities you'll find in Mara, and last week about surveys and review widgets. So if you missed those sessions but still are interested in some of those sessions, feel free to watch them, watch the recordings. They are all online, available in our YouTube channel. If you can't find them, always just message us as always. If you have any kind of questions, feel free to use the comment section in the top right to ask any kind of questions. We'll pause from time to time and answer all your questions. As said, this session today is about integrations, special focus on PMS integrations, but we'll also quickly talk about ticketing integrations, and afterwards we'll dive into the API as well to show you how to use the API, how to create an API key, and so on and so forth. With that, I'll share my screen. Paola will interrupt me whenever there are any kind of questions. We'll answer them either directly or throughout the session. We'll start with the PMS integrations, and you'll find them in settings and tech integrations. We'll talk about all the functionalities the PMS integrations will enable, but before we go into the details, I'll quickly show you how to add a PMS integration. So you can just click when a property is not connected to a PMS integration, click on Add Integrations, and then you'll see all available PMS systems that are available to connect to with Mara. That now right now is Muse, Apaleo, Ibelza, Protel Cloud, like Magic, and Opera Cloud from Oracle. Opera Cloud is the only one that needs approval, and were also additional fees applied. This is because Opera Cloud charges for API access, and this is why this is the only integration that does cost extra with Mara. To get more information about that and activate the Opera Cloud integration, you can just contact our support. For all other integrations, you can directly add them yourself. For Muse and Apaleo, quickly show you that, you'll be redirected to the marketplace sections and then have to press start integration. Usually you have to have admin accounts in those platforms. That is very similar for Apaleo. So you'll land when clicking the Add Apaleo integration in the Apaleo App Store on the Mara profile page, and then you can connect app. Again, you have to be an administrator in your Apaleo account to add integrations, but then the rest of the process is quite straightforward. For some of the other PMS systems, you may need other information, like for example, for Ibelza, you need an API key, or for like Magic, you'll need client ID, tenant name, client secret, and so on and so forth. You'll receive all of those details from your PMS system support. There are also first help support articles in our help center. If you can't find them, or if some are still missing, feel free to reach out to our support, and we'll let you know about the steps to connect your PMS system. In addition to the ones that are available, Stay in Touch will become available very soon in the next coming weeks. So keep an eye on that integration if you're on those. Later on, we'll also talk about housekeeping and maintenance tickets, but right now I would like to dive into what the PMS integration enables, how it works. So first of all, there are actually three different kind of features enabled with the PMS integration, and we'll go through all of them. But the basis of all of our PMS integrations is a matching between the reservation in the PMS and the review in Mara. And we do that only when we can be 100% certain that this is a match. And right now we do that based on OTA reservation IDs, and therefore only do that for booking reviews and Expedia reviews. And in addition, we also do that for surveys, for surveys created with Mara that are shared in a very specific way. We'll quickly talk about that in a minute. But for booking and Expedia reviews, it works because when you set up the direct integration with booking and Expedia, we, with each review, receive the OTA code and will then look up this OTA code in the reservations of the PMS. And when we find a reservation, we know this reservation really belonged to this review and can match that. Usually our matching rate is about 95%. So once PMS integration is connected, about 95% of all reviews can be matched with reservations. And the first thing you see when the integration works correctly is that you have in your review inbox additional information we receive from the PMS system. And this is, for example, the room number, also the room type, the rate, and the stay dates. In addition, what you'll see in live accounts, what I don't have here in the demo account, is the real rate, so the price the guest paid per night. This allows further analyses. Now, to make this work, you do not only need to add the PMS integration, but if you don't have to, usually by that time you have already, you need to add the direct integration for booking.com and Expedia, because only then the matching can work and we can enrich the reviews data with and match with the reservations from the PMS. With surveys, you can set up surveys in Mara, and if you send them out in a very specific way by adding the PMS reservation ID, we can do exactly the same as we do for booking in Expedia. And we explained how to do that in last week's mastery session about surveys. So if you missed this one, are interested in setting up the surveys and sending them out via your communication tool, your CRM, or whatever, and how to include the reservation ID in the link correctly so that survey responses also get enriched with PMS data, please watch the other mastery series session. If you still have questions, reach out to us. We have some help articles that cover this topic in depth as well. Let's go into all of the functionalities this PMS integration enables. First of all, and enriches your data in the review inbox, and this just gives you additional context, right? So you see in which room number the guest stayed in, which might be helpful if the guest complained about Wi-Fi issues, for example. You directly see in which room and which floor this guest has been, and can share this information with your team. If someone complains about the value for money, the high price, you directly see the price per night, the rate, and so on and so forth. So this just gives you more context when responding to the reviews and analyzing reviews. But there's also more information in our analytics screens. And you see this, for example, in our property overview. So if you navigate to the property overview and have selected a property that has an active PMS integration, you see like a room number analysis in the bottom. And this shows you like what's the average rating based on how many reviews for each of your rooms. And this can be helpful to identify rooms that get constantly more negative reviews than your average, your other rooms, and can educate you on which rooms you should assign last within a category, for example. For example, it can be because of different reasons, and to understand why you receive more negative, more positive reviews in certain rooms, there is this AI button. We'll click that in a second, but this helps you understand what the reason is. Might be because, I don't know, the room is close to the elevator and guests continuously complain about the noise coming from the elevator, or yeah, something else like air conditioning not strong enough or whatever. When clicking on this button, you'll be redirected to the Ask Reviews Anything page that just summarizes those reviews and gives you a summary of the reviews that are connected to the room. In addition, you'll not only find the like breakdown by room number, but also by other meta information, for example, the room type. That also could be helpful. I saw in some live accounts that, for example, a family room was rated significantly worse than a doubles room, and probably because it's the same size, and for a family, this feels more cramped than for just a double room. But that might be interesting to analyze from time to time. Also, the rate might be interesting to see if there are certain rates that get better or worse ratings. And what I can't show you here in this demo account, but what you would have access to, is a price per night analysis. This is actually a chart that appears that shows you on which price points your average rating drops below certain critical thresholds, for example, below 4.0 Mara score, which is, for example, an 8.0 in booking.com. And that can inform you what price per night you shouldn't exceed, because it has a negative impact on your ratings on booking.com, and therefore potential negative impact on your future demand. And in addition, you'll see those insights also in the Reviews Insights screen. So when you analyze your property's data and want to go deeper, so for example, let's have a look at some public areas and maybe some room level topics. Let me just select another property. Some room level issues. And here, let's have a look at rooms too small. And I can just click on this topic and see if this complaint is more present in specific rooms or specific room types, for example. In our demo data, this is just fake data, right? But if you have very concrete complaints regarding Wi-Fi issues, you can very quickly narrow it down to specific rooms or even floors by decoding the room number here. So this might give you an additional insight when analyzing where the issues are coming from. In addition, also the AI research assistant has access to all of this PMS data linked to the reviews. We showed that in a dedicated webinar and also touched on that during the analytics mastery session. But one template I'd like to show you is the room analysis template. You can just activate with a few clicks here. And this is how such a room analysis report looks like. It will summarize you what are the 10 lowest rated rooms in the analyzed period, and shows you also an analysis of on why they have been rated negatively. So in this case, shower leaks and water ingress. This room was rated negatively because of the small size and limited storage, and so on and so forth. In addition, it gives you the table we saw also on the front end, like the full table here as a raw output as well. And you can just create this research assistant task and let it run automatically, for example, every month, and send it out to specific people who should be receiving this room analysis report automatically. Then let's head back to tech stack integrations. So first, we now touched on like how the matching works and what this enables, which is mainly this room level performance analytics and more in Mara. But actually our PMS integrations are not just one way, they're two-way, and that means we also push back information back into the PMS system. I just have slides I can show you that with, as I don't have access and can't share access to live PMS data here. But I'll show you one example how this looks like in Muse, as we did a webinar about that. But it works in all PMS systems similarly, with a few details I'll mention in a second. So what you see here in Muse is a guest profile of one guest, like a dummy guest, which is me. And when we match a review and a reservation, we also create a node in the guest profile summarizing the guest preferences based on the reviews. So in this case, there's always a prefix so that you know this comes from Mara. And then it says guest prefers a quiet room away from the air-conditioned exhaust area and appreciates friendly staff and convenient location near the train station. So yeah, this is basically a summary of what this person wrote in their public review. You also have additional information like the review date, the property this review was linked to, and the reservation ID. And the use case here is with this node that is created in the guest profile, you know more about returning guests and can serve them more personally. So imagine a guest stayed in one of your properties if you're running a multi-property hotel group, and left a review with this stay. And now the same guest returned at this property or another property, and you now have access to this data. And there are actually two use cases this is used for most. One is sleep preferences. So for example, a guest complained that like here, guest prefers a quiet room away from the air conditioner because they probably complained in the last review about the loud noise from the air conditioning exhaust area. So then when this guest checks in, you can make sure that you assign a room to this guest that is known to be quiet, maybe in an upper floor, or where you know there isn't a large group on the same floor, to make sure this guest has a good experience in your hotel. And second is using it for upsell. So if you see positive aspects in the summary in the guest preference, like the guest mentioned the breakfast very positively, and you see in the current reservation they didn't book breakfast already, then you can use that to upsell additional breakfast during check-in, for example. For Muse, very specifically, we also classify guest as a previous complaint, and you then see, I think it's one icon, I think it's maybe this one here, that informs you that this guest left a negative review previously. We do create those notes for all PMS systems, but it depends a little bit on which level. We try to create a note on the guest level, so on the guest profile. But for some PMS systems, there is no guest entity, or there is no API endpoint to create a note for a guest. So then we fall back to create a note in the old reservation. But ideally, there is guest profile, and then we can create a note in the guest profile. For Muse, this, like all the notes, are then also summarized and in this AI tip to make it more accessible to the front office staff. But in general, the idea is using that at the front office during and before check-in to make sure this guest has a unique and personal experience. Let's come back to our TechSec integrations. The last feature that is enabled with the PMS integration is automated service tickets. We have developed a service ticket AI that automatically creates service tickets and basically scans reviews that have a room number attached based on the PMS integration for things that need urgent, immediate attention. And that usually is either a housekeeping or a maintenance ticket. And I know there is some good example in here. Yeah, here it is. So you see them in the inbox as well. So in this case, in the negative part of the review, someone mentioned the sink in the room was clogged and slow to drain. Perfect example for a maintenance ticket. And in this case, maintenance ticket was therefore created, called sink clogged and slow to drain in room 126. There's also the review quote from the review and a recommended action created by AI. And it's assigned to either maintenance, housekeeping, marketing, or front office. The two most common cases is maintenance and housekeeping, because those are also the ones we can push into your ticketing system automatically without ticketing integrations. But up until now, based on the PMS integrations, those maintenance and housekeeping tickets are just created in the background for you, and you see them. You can then share them via email with your maintenance team, for example, but they're just created in the background and nothing happens with them right now. And the idea is really to have this AI scanning reviews, especially the negative ones, but also decide which one needs to, for which ones do I need to create a ticket and for which ones don't. For example, something is broken, that is usually worth maintenance ticket. Something needs to be replenished, this can be a housekeeping ticket. But there are more cases, obviously. Cool. I would now move on, as I see that there are no questions, I would move on to the ticketing integrations. The ticketing integrations are just available if you have set up a PMS integration. So if you have set up a PMS integration, you can add an additional ticketing integration. Right now, there is like directly used tasks, FlexKeeping, SnapFix, HotelKit, but also that you don't see here, there is Sweeply and like Magic. Sweeply right now just works if you're running on Apaleo, but if you're using any other kind of PMS plus Sweeply, please let us know. We'll very likely find a solution together with the Sweeply team to also enable the integration for Sweeply plus other PMS systems. And like Magic, if you have selected like Magic as PMS, you can also use like Magic tasks. And sorry, I know like Magic isn't a PMS, but we do the same thing with integrations that we do for other PMS systems, which is why this kind of middle layer serves for us as a PMS. And if you have connected like Magic as a PMS here, you can also create tasks directly in like Magic tasks and select this as housekeeping and maintenance integration. So what does it do? Until now, we create these service tickets, like for example, AC broken in room 105 in the background. It still lives in our database. You can see them in the review inbox if there is any, like here, but they don't get pushed automatically. And we believe feedback should be operationalized and should be seen by everyone who is affected. And obviously your maintenance team shouldn't need an access to Mara to learn those things. They have their tools like FlexKeeping or Sweeply or HotelKit, and they like using those tools to streamline their operations for a good reason. So we want to just push those tickets automatically into those systems. And this is the only thing the ticketing integrations are doing. It's really just whenever there's a new ticket created that is for housekeeping or maintenance, push this ticket automatically into the system. Setting up those tickets is fairly simple. You have to enter, like here it's a client ID or client secret. For FlexKeeping, it's an API key. And then after you entered a valid API key, or after you have entered an API key, this one is validated. And then you have to have a few additional settings that you can also modify afterwards. Not here in the demo environment, but that you can then change afterwards. And I'll quickly show you how that looks for FlexKeeping, as we also have that in this presentation. So what you can select is basically how you want to assign maintenance and how do you want to assign housekeeping tickets. And this differs a little bit platform by platform. FlexKeeping solved that with assignment codes, and you can either choose one of the assignment codes that you already have or ask your FlexKeeping support team to create an additional assignment code for, let's say, Mara repair and Mara housekeeping. And this is actually what we would recommend for the beginning, because we believe it's super important that your teams know this is a ticket that was created automatically from Mara based on reviews, and I'll explain you why in a second. But this is why in this example, this customer created a Mara repair assignment code and also a Mara housekeeping assignment code, and all maintenance ticket will be assigned to this Mara repair group, and then multiple people have access to this assignment code and get those tickets automatically. And in addition, when possible, we also say that this comes from Mara. In the ticket itself, there's all the information we saw already in Mara. There is the ticket title, excessive noise from AC exhaust room at night. Then the complaint, which is the quote from the review. If from time to time we also push directly the AI recommendation, and then there is the check-in and check-out date. Why is it important to make visible that this is a ticket that comes from Mara? Because usually this ends up in the ticketing maintenance housekeeping tool a couple of days after the guest left the building. Because how does the whole process look like? The guest checked out at your place, then probably the day after receives the request from, let's say, booking.com to leave a review on booking.com. Then maybe 1 or 2 days later, he actually leaves the review on booking.com. Then it takes a few days until it gets approved and approved by booking.com, and then is publicly available and visible. Only then Mara can grab and analyze this review and create a ticket out of that and then push it into FlexKeeping. That means from checkout to a ticket in FlexKeeping, that is usually 3 to 7 days, I'd say. But it can be even later when the guest leaves a review, I don't know, weeks after he or she checked out. And that means, for example, the guest leaves a review about this excessive noise from AC exhaust room at night. That means this might have been fixed last week or 2 days ago already. And your maintenance team should know that this is not happening again, but was still the issue that you have probably fixed already. Because in some cases, this guest might raise this complaint during checkout, but in others, he or she might not. And in all cases, you should check that as well. What we also see from our customers is that they add like another layer in between, that all of these tickets gets assigned to a person that then reassigns them to a team that first like checks and knows what has happened before. Is it something I want to forward to someone or not? But it is already in the ticketing system. Yeah, still looking at the questions, but Paula, I think there is none, right? So I just keep going.
Yes.
We now have covered the PMS integrations in depth, and then also the housekeeping and maintenance tickets. And now I'd like to do a quick detour to API keys. So via settings, you can create API keys and also test the API yourself. This now gets a little bit more technical, but if you'd like to do something with our API, get data out of Mara into other systems, into your BI system, you can use our API for that, and I'll quickly explain you how to do that. First, you can create your API keys yourself. Just click on API key, then enter any kind of name like EN webinar test key. Usually for you, it's like, I don't know, BI integration key or whatever. But you can basically give it any kind of name, and then you create actually this API key. You can copy to your clipboard and use in your code. You can deactivate them or rotate them. Just a word of caution about rotation. If you rotate this API key, it's invalidated and a new one is created. If you still have the old one in your code, this one wouldn't work anymore. I'll quickly show you the current version of the API. You can simply click this Open API Navigation here, and it will open up the Swagger documentation of our API. And I'll go through some of the endpoints here and explain you the three main use cases our customers implemented with the API as of now. To test the API, you can simply hit authorize, then add the API key and authorize. And afterwards, you can use the API and test out endpoints just by clicking on an endpoint, clicking on try it out, and execute, and then it returns the data for your account. Important information is all API keys have always the scope and privileges to access all your account data. This is also the reason why only account admins can create and access the API key screen and create API keys or invalidate API keys and so on and so forth. So you can't restrict APIs per property. They're always account based and have access to all your account information. As said, there are three main use cases our customers use the API for. One is pulling data in a central BI system. The second one is building a custom own service ticket integration. And the third is building their own custom widgets. And if you have any other use cases, feel free to implement them, just to give you an idea of what the API can be used for. For the BI use case, the idea is creating a central dashboard with not just review data, but with financial data, with revenue data, and so on and so forth, and pulling key KPIs from each of those sources into a leadership dashboard. And for this purpose, you can, for example, use the properties endpoint to get the property IDs from Mara. And I'll just grab the first one for the Mara resort here, and then call the properties stats endpoint. We can basically enter as comma separated lists of IDs and then start and end dates. I'll just choose year to date, right? So 1st of Jan 2026 to today. And with that, you'll receive all of the important KPIs about this property, the total number of reviews, the reviews that have been answered, the reviews that actually can't be replied to, which is important to calculate the response rate, the average Mara score, and more, and then also statistics for each of the platforms that are mapped to this property. But there are more. So if you need more detailed data, analytics data for the BI system, there is the analytics section with an endpoint to get KPI data over time, and an endpoint to get our categories and topics sentiment data, so to say, with plenty of filters. There are also endpoints to get competitor data from your Mara account. And if you'd like to, you can also access and pull your raw reviews. If there's any endpoint missing, if there's any use case you'd like to implement but can't find the data in these endpoints available, let us know. We're always happy to hear what you'd like to build on top of our API, and usually also quite fast in adding additional endpoints if needed. The second use case is about building custom service tickets integrations. As mentioned, whenever there's a PMS integration, you can, like Mara is creating the service tickets directly in the background. So we can just have a look here and pull the latest ones for this account, but they remain in our database, but are accessible via this service ticket API endpoint if you haven't connected to your ticketing system, or if you don't use one of the typical ticketing systems, but use a custom solution either with, I don't know, a Google document or with Slack or WhatsApp, whatever. You can build your custom workflows and basically pull data from this endpoint, and then with a simple automation push that automatically to whatever system you use, or even push that to a WhatsApp group or that your housekeeping team uses, for example. And you can build a lot yourself with AI or automation tools such as N8N, Zapier, or Make. And the endpoint basically returns all the data associated to the service ticket that you saw. So the ticket title, the room number, the complaint, recommended action, some timestamps, the departments it's assigned to, like housekeeping, for example, reservation ID if available, a link to the Mara inbox that you can add as well, and so on and so forth. So this one can be used if you'd like to push those automatically created tickets in any kind of system that is not supported by Mara yet. And the last use case is a little similar. It's about widgets. We presented them in the last mastery session last week. We have out of the box widgets that you can just implement on your website quite easily by adding small code snippets that you can add to your website, and that then will display our review widget. But if you are a hotel group that wants to have this, or wants to have a widget but want to customize a little bit further, like having it, if you require it to have to use your font or your color scheme or something else, you can build that yourself, probably quite quickly with AI in your design, but configure it in a way that it uses directly the Mara data that's already available. So the heavy lifting data processing and gathering is done already and can be used from Mara, and you can just build nice looking widget on top of that. You need two API endpoints for that. One is the widgets endpoint that just returns all the created widgets for you. So you still have to create a widget in Mara, but then you can access this widget and the widget data here. So it then returns all the widgets configured in the account, and with the widget ID, you can then pull all the data that we also use for in our widgets. That contains, for example, the overall number of reviews and the total average rating, but also the raw scores per platform that you configured. In this case, it was Google Maps, Booking.com, and TripAdvisor. And then here for Booking.com, the current rating is 8.7. This listing has 1,214 reviews as of today. And there is also a URL to the platform if you'd like to include that in any kind of way. Yeah, I think this is all that is relevant about the API right now. And with that, we are actually at the end of this webinar. So let me quickly stop sharing my screen. We still don't have any open questions, right, Paola?
Nope, there's no open question.
Perfect. Then we're at the end. If you have any open questions, let us know. Again, you'll find all recordings of our 3 to 4 hours video content of the mastery series, from review inbox to analytics, survey widgets, and now connectivity and integrations and API access. Online on our YouTube channel. If you can't find that, just shoot us an email and we share the links with you. Everyone who registered and watched also receives that automatically. Thanks again for joining in, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.